Welcome to No Room for Phonies.
Episode 69.
And today we are in beautiful downtown, well maybe not downtown, but we are in beautiful Brantford, Ontario. And a big thank you to our hosts Nick and Brittany. And we have Nick and Sebastian on our podcast today because we are talking about not biking, but cycling. So
you could call it biking if you wanted to. It's kind of pretentious to call it cycling.
or biking.
That works too.
But we're talking about taking cycling just up a notch.
Oh,
from
okay.
what Mom and I do.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got the old Canadian Tire bikes. We want to go
The next level.
So just before we get into the cycling discussion, I want to do my green light moment for the last 2 weeks. I always am reading, but this book is called The Science of Stuck, which is one of my our book recommendations. And I just wanted to talk about my green light moment is sort of about the feeling of connection and belonging, which we know from a lot of the stuff I've read with Brené Brown, that connection is absolutely important for survival as...
it's built into our DNA.
Yes. So sometimes the feeling of belonging, of acceptance is more important than an unusual detail or belief. And so at that point we become pliant, and so we're willing to suspend our disbelief in order not to feel alone. So that is how people get caught up in cults or...
Political movements.
We won't talk about any, but political movements. And so just that idea that, and it was a green light moment for me because that is not me. My moral compass is pretty steady.
Yeah, but we've also talked about Voth, and when you were like a schoolgirl, you would not be part of the in crowd,
yes.
But not because of any reasons of the mean girls or whatever. It was just your own choice not
yes.
to get sucked into that.
Yeah, I just didn't. That was just not my nature. So when I read this, I'm thinking you really would suspend your moral compass to be part of a group? And
oh yeah,
I don't know.
Absolutely.
Would you suspend your moral compass to be part of a group?
If it was a cycling group.
I was going to say, I don't know, my moral compass maybe not, but...
I took your joke, Nick. I apologize.
Yeah.
But
How dare you?
Yeah.
Well, just to go back to a couple episodes ago, just so people
Yes.
might listen to it if they haven't yet. When I came to Canada from Colombia, one of the things I had a hard time was getting used to Canadian culture. And I definitely would give up a lot of my inner probably compass thoughts or beliefs just so that I could make friends and fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway.
Loneliness is a big deal in the world.
It is.
It is. I just have always been the kind of person who I don't need a big crowd, and I was happier just with one or two like real soulmates or kindred spirits rather than...
Oh, and we just got invited to join a cycling club, and we
Oh,
looked
yeah.
at each other and we said, no.
And it wasn't from us, right?
No. I'll join your
It was peers our age,
Yeah, no,
and it
we're
was just like,
no, thank
no
you.
thanks.
Yeah.
So anyway, our book recommendations are The Science of Stuck, which I think everyone should read this book. It talks about marriage, it talks about friendship, it
Dating.
talks about dating, it does
Workplace.
It's
really good.
It's excellent. It talks about anxiety, trauma, all kinds of things, and it puts a very, very different perspective on it. And the other one that we have both read is called Changing Minds, and it is a lot of research into how you change people's minds. They talk about things like deep canvassing, which is how they worked in the States to try and get people to change how they felt about
gay marriage
and what they did, and it's a very
and how they were successful to get like the votes in all sorts of states, so that in the Supreme Court gay marriage went forward.
Mm-hmm. It's just a very interesting book. So those are our two book recommendations. For podcast recommendation, I just want you guys both to know that I just Googled Canadian cycling podcast. There are
tons of them.
Yeah, from technical
Crap.
to
Because now we can't start one.
Well,
Why not?
We just
You
have
can-
to now get on this list.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have to get on the
You
list.
can start one and,
But
and be better than
it
the
talks
others.
about like the technical parts of it. There's a whole podcast just
Ooh, on like
dedicated.
building bikes?
Yeah,
Oh
all
my
kinds
gosh.
of that. And then there's the athletic aspect of biking. And
yeah.
then there's a whole bunch that are just comedic, like people.
Oh, that's fun. I would listen to
falling,
those
like,
ones, I think.
All kinds of things. So if you're wanting to, if you listen to podcasts like I do when I'm walking, I'll put a podcast on, then I would recommend it.
Do you have
That
any
one was
specific
like-
names
No,
that you can
I
throw
didn't
out there?
because
oh.
there was such a long list
Oh,
of
wow.
them.
Okay.
I didn't even, and I didn't listen to one because
Oh, okay. That's
I
fine.
couldn't
I'll
be
listen and
bothered.
report back.
Sorry,
That's fine.
I'm a podcaster saying I couldn't be bothered to listen to a podcast.
Yeah, how dare you.
but Anyway, so we're going to talk, I'm going to hand it over to you because we're going to talk about the top 10 reasons why you go cycling. And I wanted to know if you guys think these
The top
are-
10 reasons to go cycling.
Yeah, to go.
Are we asking them to list off the top of their own heads, or am I
list-
am I mentioning it and
No,
then they can agree or
tell
disagree?
us. You tell us what you think the top 10 reasons are to go cycling, and we'll see
In
if
no
they're on their
particular
list.
order.
In no particular order.
I feel like this
10?
is like Steve Harvey with the Family Feud game. Or
Yeah.
That's it.
Survey
So-
says.
Do you want
Yeah.
to go back and forth? You wanna,
Yeah, we could maybe create 10 together.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I don't
Oh,
know
yeah,
if I know
together.
10.
I've got one, so you
Yeah.
start, and that way I can.
What if we
think of
get
the
what
other
if we
one.
get the same one? Yeah, this
Go
is
for
going
If
to be
you
a
get
problem.
the same one, no,
So-
we won't make you like go on for hours.
Okay,
We'll
that's
add
good.
ours.
No, I'm good. I'm good to.
Yeah. Reason number, like, this is not in like order top 10.
Okay,
No,
so
there's
fitness.
no order.
Number one is fitness.
Did
Okay,
you
great.
introduce?
Yes.
Did you introduce our
Oh
guests
no!
properly?
I said Nick and Sebastian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So-
our guests are, before we start this, Sebastian has been on podcasts before, mostly about cooking,
Yes.
You
Well,
mean on
yes.
our podcast?
and one
Yes.
about movies,
favorite movies, yeah.
that we did as a family. But
Yes.
you've been podcasting, and Nick is Sebastian's friend and our friend as well. And you guys cycle together, right?
Yes.
So when I thought of doing something on cycling, I thought it would be better to have people who do real cycling, not
And I mean,
fake cycling.
we've been cycling once so far, I believe, together on the
Together.
same ride. But we've been
Yeah.
supportive back and forth of each other's rides
So-
alone, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So, because we're both very busy.
Avid.
Well,
cycle,
you're both
but-
working full-time jobs,
So-
and you're studying, so it's not like you have all day to cycle.
But we find time. So,
But
I would
and
like
you
to
have
spend all day.
cycled for how long?
I've always had a bike in the garage.
Yes, of
So that
But I mean, what you would call real cycling.
I think-
When you've done more than around the block.
since the start of the pandemic is when I did longer, like over 50-kilometer rides. Was after in the middle of the pandemic, because it took me a bit to get a bike.
So about like 2 years,
Two-ish
something
years, sure.
Yeah.
And
How
then
about you,
Nick?
Nick?
You were like,
You've cycled longer distances for a while.
That's correct. My background is, as a teenager, I had a mountain bike like every teenager
Yeah.
does, and that was a decade ago. And then I stopped biking, and of course, I gained a whole bunch of weight and went through university, and then now an adult, and I decided, hey, cycling might be a fun thing to pick back up. And so I'm currently in my first technical season of what I would call that slightly more elevated version of
Yes.
cycling, where we take it seriously for all the reasons that you would, being getting outside and nutrition and things
yep,
like that.
you got that.
You're getting
Thank
close.
you, as well as enjoyment. I'm just
Bing,
two birds,
bing,
one stone here.
Ping.
That's good.
So technically in my first season, but I've been steeped in it for the past couple of years.
That's great.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, getting outside is one of the reasons, right?
Yep.
Getting outside, fitness, you said.
Fitness. Yeah.
Nutrition, you said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So going outside, it hugely reduces carbon footprint to cycle.
Okay. That's
That's actually
commuting.
a great
Commuting.
idea.
I've been
Yeah.
since I moved to Hamilton. I've been biking to work almost every single day, biking or walking, back and forth.
They talk about that, don't they?
Yes.
And I have
saved.
saved a buttload on gas, and I'm very proud of that.
Yes, they talk. They
Yep.
talk about that. That even.
Save your money. It
Yeah.
says
Yeah.
cycling can save you a pile of money.
I mean, up front, I did buy a very expensive bike, so that doesn't help. It kind of offset. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't spend a whole bunch of money on gas, but I put all that money saved to a new bike.
There's a fixed cost to it.
Yes.
Though. You made this
Yeah.
one-time
But-
investment that
Yeah.
you can then.
Now this bike will probably outlive me. Is the goal?
Mhm.
That's
Right.
that's your goal, to take care and take your bike to the mechanic.
Well, I'm
the bike
going to
mechanic
say
every
that
year
we
and-
bought Zachary a bike, a really good bike,
and he still has it.
when
Yeah.
he went
To university.
to university because he was going to be biking around. And he's been out of university for
5 years.
5 years, and he still has that bike.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
And
We
you got
spent-
it for him when he was done growing tall,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So he still fits that bike. That's a good thing to mention,
Yes.
so that people don't
Yeah,
go
don't spend-
buy a kid.
Okay, but I went and bought a bike and it said 5'11" to 6'1", and I'm 6 feet.
and we can get into
and
this
that's terrible
because that's a Walmart bike. But we'll get into those.
Canadian,
How do you
Canadian
really-
Tire,
Alright,
not
So
Walmart.
any other
Can
great?
I
Yeah.
tie into your theme for the day, just on the
Yes.
note of green light and connection? Is connection/community
Yeah.
one that would be on the list? Friendship?
Yeah,
Because I would say that's a big part
Oh.
of my motivation for that as well.
Oh, for biking.
Yeah.
That's a good.
yeah. it
Sebastian, do you
is.
even care about cycling at all?
I do. I just can't think of 10 reasons. There's so many reasons.
Give him one. But
Oh,
they
you
haven't said-
somebody brushed by about
Oh.
healthiness.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, that's. I mean, fitness, health, like that, all kind of
Yeah.
goes in the same category, right?
Yep.
What's another one?
Is
Make better use of your time.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
What does it say about?
Well, it's about sitting in traffic jams.
Oh, yeah.
You get exercise at the same time you're getting fresh air. There's more than just 2 for 1. It could be up to 4 for 1.
Right.
New challenges and adventures.
I was just going to ask if there's something related to competition or competitiveness on there.
Mhm.
Something
Yeah.
that I think for people who might be a little more
That's
hardcore than I am in this
Well,
case.
and look at you. Didn't you do some big bike trip? Where you
yeah,
went
he
long
did.
far?
That was
I did.
so inspiring for me
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I've been looking to do a trip like that, and we were just on the phone the other night, and he gave me a whole bunch of things that he found out on this trip.
Where did you go? Sorry, just
So
Yeah.
I started. We were having a family event that was up in the Muskoka area,
Okay.
which is 3.5, 4 hours from where we are currently
driving.
So
Yes.
that gives context
Yeah.
for cycling.
Yeah.
And so the route that I took we're fortunate to be located right on the rail trail that runs from Brantford all the way into Burlington and then into Toronto. So I did Brantford to Toronto, and then I hopped a GO train from Toronto to Barrie just for safety
Yeah.
again, being in my
'Cause
first
that's
season.
crappy one.
And then I stayed overnight in Barrie at a lovely little bed and breakfast. And then the next day I biked from Barrie to Aurelia to Gravenhurst, ending up in Gravenhurst.
So-
Wow, and obviously not on the 411 highway.
No,
No,
you can't bike on highways.
Yes, legally I'm not allowed to do that.
Okay.
And I also don't think I would take it on.
No,
No.
it's already precarious to drive.
And what
that.
was
Yes.
smart about that trip is taking the train the first time, because there are there's not just highways to get up, but the roads are very you have to be a certain level of experience, I think, to make it through those sections of just nothingness.
Right.
Like that gets a little scary sometimes. Like you have to
Mhm.
be, I think, over prepared for those situations, and maybe it was a family trip you wanted to make it to. So maybe,
Right.
but for future adventures,
Mhm.
another thing to add to the list is, now I'm blanking on it. We
For
can
planning.
Well, like going through the Canadian Shield, loneliness, long stretches of.
It's like self growth would be like
Oh,
being
okay.
alone for long periods of time
Yeah.
on your own and
Yeah.
having to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you can't really just
you
give
can't
up
just-
and quit.
Like there was a trip where it was very, very hot in July the last year,
Mhm.
and I had to call for a ride because I was just too hot. It was just
Right.
heat stroke was setting in. I knew it was
well, and
happening.
you didn't choose. Well, I shouldn't say this.
No.
But your riding buddies were.
I didn't choose the
best.
greatest community of riders.
It's very, very bad.
so-
choice. And I said that.
And I made some mistakes. Like on this first long ride, I
Mom.
decided to have a apple cider that was maybe a little bit alcoholic, and it was
Maybe
really,
a
really
little
hot,
bit alcohol.
And not
And-
enough water.
and not enough water.
And I heard that electrolytes.
I didn't know about
They
this.
play a pretty key role when you're going for a longer ride on a hot day.
So this was like a 50 kilometer, like one of my first 50 kilometer rides on a hot day.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know what I was doing. And yeah, so I called for a ride. But out on these huge expanses, like the bit from Barrie to Muskoka, there's just forest and
Yeah.
roads.
And I want to say as well, just to qualify, is that there are people who are much more impressive cyclists than I am or probably ever will be. But in this case, considering it's the first season of actual cycling,
Yeah.
I really wanted to make sure that I broke up my distances appropriately. So I chatted with a couple of friends, including Sebastian, who had done similar things, just to kind of parlay back and forth and bounce ideas around about how I should be prepping and planning. That's what led to the idea of breaking up the rides every day. And so for context on that, the longest rides I'd done up until that point was 60 kilometers in one day, which is a yawn for some people and a large distance for others, depending on where you fall on that spectrum. And so looking at this, I knew it was going to be 105 to 120 kilometers each day, depending on the route that I decided to take. And especially when that's back-to-back consecutive days, I think that's what led me to really step back and want to think through a little bit more prior to
Right, because each consecutive day you're just a little bit more fatigued.
Yes.
And,
Yeah, I believe I learned the term sit bones, which is a very important one for cyclists to know.
Which is what? What does it mean?
Sit bones are the bones that I'm going to do a horrible job of describing this, but exactly where your contact with the saddle is when you're cycling.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. Because it's like, I'm just going to compare it to growing up riding horses, right?
Yes.
Like when you first start riding horses,
it hurts.
It hurts.
Yeah. And then the more you do it, it's all.
Yeah.
Speaking of sit bones, one of the topics is discovering what motorists can't see. Sorry, that's
not
just
what they're saying that they're enjoying the scenery. That's funny.
Sorry,
I think we've covered a lot of good.
No, but I think that point, discovering what motorists can't see. Did you see a lot of things that you wouldn't have seen?
I would say that was one of the primary reasons for wanting to bike up there. We're fortunate that we do get invited to this particular family's cottage up there every summer or so, and we've driven up, ever since I can remember as a kid. Because I had the opportunity now with this nice bike and a little more knowledge of how to do these things, I thought, what a great personal challenge. So that's one of the things off the list. And then in addition to that, I found out through trying to map out the different routes that the rail trail was from here to Toronto. And then there was also a rail trail that I took the next day, leaving Barrie to get to Gravenhurst. So for the majority of the way, I'm on a trail which was nicely maintained, but realistically can't be driven on. And you still cross in and out of communities and things like that. But there are parts that are a little more sparse in terms of population. And then there's other parts that are a little more dense. But that being said, there's a lot of beautiful scenery that you wouldn't get if you're taking the highway, like you were saying up there. It's a very different experience because you're whipping past 3 times as fast as you could go consistently on a bike. You're really not taking it in as much, especially if you've done it a couple of times. This was very much an enjoyable chance to take in things around you and just experience being out in nature, out in the wilderness, push yourself a little bit, but really just get a multifaceted enjoyment.
Very cool. And then one last thing, because you talked about growing and becoming a better whatever. So freedom and good karma. So cycling promotes freedom and self-sufficiency.
Cool.
You'll not be dependent on other people or fuel-fed machines to get around, and you'll be a better human being. So because you can escape the clutches of your evil boss and leap over tall buildings. Wow, talk about
that might be a bit dramatic.
A bit dramatic,
but no, like there is a bit of that too. Like escaping is like that's a good point. Some people say it's like, oh, you want to do a bike ride for your vacation, like a bike packing trip for your vacation? Are you insane? And it's like, well, no, that's a real escape. You are without contact from anyone.
Well, you do have to text your mother every day.
Yeah, you do. Yeah,
I did.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
Text
or your wife to be.
Yeah,
I also did.
That's important.
Yes, thank you. But so that's kind of gives a little bit of an idea of how you guys, why you do what you do. And so the other research I did for today was just to look at the best biking trails in Ontario. So I just looked up the top 10.
Just to see if either of you have
done them
or, maybe or heard of them.
One last thing to add to the list, it's also to maintain amazing calves. That's what it is.
Yes.
That's all it's about.
The vanity of that.
Vanity.
I also like to think that I did that.
Yes. It is. Yes. It is a super exercise. Like there's all kinds of exercise.
I felt like that needed its own column.
When I was studying in Vancouver and I biked everywhere, I had awesome calves by the end of those 2 years, and I want them back. So.
They're on their way.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, best biking trails in Ontario, now that we've complimented Charles's calves. The first one, I'll say it, but I don't think it's the best biking trail in Ontario. I'll just put that out right there. It's the Burlington Waterfront Trail.
Oh, like as in
The one
like
you were
Burlington.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a couple of things immediately with that trail that I don't enjoy. Well, it's because it's a really beautiful waterfront, so the views are amazing, but it is crowded.
Yeah.
It is
That's-
so
we biked
crowded.
it one
You are
time.
ringing your bell on the bike 24/7. Like it is just constant.
It's-
There's
yeah.
someone ahead of you.
You have a bell on your bike?
Not yet, but I should get one. Is what I? Yeah, I'm not a true cyclist.
Uh-huh.
Oh, we always say on your left, so we don't.
Yeah,
know.
I yell at people instead.
So that one, I've biked it.
Now, do you know if these are in order from somebody that's
No,
done
they're
these?
just.
Oh,
okay.
okay.
They're just
I thought that was number one. I
No,
was like,
no.
No,
It's
really?
just one
Okay.
of the. And the next one is the Lynn Shores Conservation Area in Whitby.
Oh, wait.
I have not done that one. Have you?
Nope, not
Nope.
not
Okay.
done that
So
one.
nothing
Sorry.
Would be no.
The this one you'll know, the SC Johnson Trail in Brantford.
So that is our local trail. We bike that on a regular basis, and I don't know if I would say it's the best one that I've done, but I would say that one is very enjoyable and personal to me because my partner Brittany and I will often bike that together.
Right.
So I enjoy getting out for a weekend ride on that trail.
That's the one.
Is it a loop, or do you go and come back on the same?
My understanding of the routes that I've taken it is that is a stretch, so not a loop, that takes you from, I believe, downtown Brantford, where it begins, and then to just the outskirts of Paris here, but it's one way back and forth.
Okay.
Yep.
That's the one I wanted to try.
Yeah, I do want to try that.
I would love to go with both of you.
yeah,
so-
that'd
Awesome.
be
Is it
fun.
mostly gravel? Does it cross the Grand River at some points on a bridge?
There is a section of that where it actually pivots away, and the
Okay.
section that crosses the Grand River is technically the Brant Conservation Area, which I think you
Okay,
would be
yeah,
familiar with.
I biked that section.
Yes. And so
But-
if you were to continue along the opposite direction, that's where it curves up towards Paris.
Towards Paris. Okay, cool.
And the next one
It's
is
a very beautiful trail.
the next one is the Friendship Trail in Port Colborne.
Oh yeah, I've done that one.
We do
Um,
that. We've done
And
that.
that one you've said has recently upgraded
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
because they
very
paved it. Before, when I was riding it, it was like dirt ruts from like, just
Yours
puddles.
I
is-
would say
yeah.
that by this list, I'm saying these are like the family,
Family.
Mm.
Okay.
like more oriented, flatter. This is what I'm feeling.
Mhm.
Cambridge to Paris Rail Trail.
So that is the next thing on my list because that's the extension technically if you were to go to Paris along the SC Johnson route. If you continued from there, you would get to continue, I believe, along the Grand River up to Cambridge. And Cambridge is actually there's a Galt, which is technically the downtown area of Cambridge.
Okay.
We spend a lot of time. There's a lot of great little breweries and coffee shops and eateries. And naturally, as a cyclist, I like to think that that's the primary motivation. So that is on my list, but I haven't done that segment yet.
To get to a coffee shop is
Yeah.
the
Hey,
end
Pam.
goal.
Yeah.
We could bike to Galt. They have one of the best yarn stores in
Oh,
Ontario.
well, there you go.
So
That's
your
our
motivation-
We're
motivation.
checking boxes here.
Yeah, we're
Is-
checking
Perfect.
boxes.
Is to get yarn. Now,
Yeah.
my question is, how do you transport yarn
It's
back?
light. You just put it in your backpack.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
backpack.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not like we're
Yeah.
bringing back a TV. It's
I wouldn't
Yeah.
buy a blanket's worth.
no.
Okay.
I have some frame bags now you could borrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there
There
you
you
go. Lynn Valley Trail in Port Dover.
Mm-hmm. So
Cool.
I can speak to this one because
Oh,
I
good.
recently did it.
This
Sorry
is
to-
amazing that we actually have ridden a bunch of these.
Yes.
This is
Yeah,
really
this is pretty cool.
cool.
I feel
Anyway,
like it very much suits our area. So well
Yeah.
researched on the part of the producers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
There you
recently
go.
did this one. I believe it runs from the outskirts of Brantford, the opposite direction from the SC Johnson Trail, down towards Port Dover and kind of Norfolk County area. And so we did a night of just one night bike packing test in Norfolk Conservation Area, which is beautiful and everybody should check out given the opportunity. And it was a beautiful maintained trail that had a great mix of different styles of things. And you pass through a bunch of little towns on the way down there. And I believe that one crosses the Grand River a little bit farther down, if I'm not mistaken. So a really, really nice trail for something like that. I think if I was looking for a trail to do on a regular basis, I'd probably go more towards something that has that destination at the end of it. But that's
Right,
me
okay.
personally.
That one just kind of goes into the woods and stops, and it's just you're there.
Yeah, you kind of just wind up in Port Dover and you're just there.
There.
And so if you're
Okay.
not going there with the intention of kind of being in Port Dover, it's a little bit. But then I'm a very what's the word? In the same way that dogs are food motivated, I'm that, but the cycling
Yeah.
version. I like the reward at the end of it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, no, we do that too, though. We
Oh
like,
yeah, we like a little destination.
Yeah,
of
we
some
like a
Yes.
kind.
destination for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is the Waterfront Trail in Cornwall. Don't think I've
Never
ever
been to
done that
Cornwall.
one.
No.
It's on the list though. I'll go. But can I?
That's up
Where
by-
is Cornwall? Can I
that's up
bike
close
through?
to the Quebec border?
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
far.
I probably won't make it there for a while, but I'll try.
And then the next one actually was the Welland Canals Parkway.
Really? Someone cares?
Yeah, someone
That's so
cares
nice.
about Welland.
That's so nice.
It is a lovely.
Well, and it's a great. Well, the whole Niagara Peninsula is all
Yes.
one trail.
So
right?
I've done that loop. That's a
Yep.
150-kilometer loop
in one day.
in one day.
He did it.
Subtle flex.
Yeah, just been there, done that. No, it's
Humble brag.
but it's part of actually the Great Lakes loop. So if you Google further,
Yeah.
it would show you that it's part of the Great Lakes loop that goes around. There's actually Great Lakes signs in
Okay.
Hamilton that I've found. I'm like, oh, that all connects. So it all somehow you can make it.
And actually in Welland now they have the Steve Bauer Trail.
Yeah.
They've now got it so it's all connected and
Oh,
paved. And
cool.
So it's
so
another.
you can do another.
It's another leg that you can add on.
You can
to the
add on
Niagara
to
one.
Oh my
the whole
gosh!
thing.
Like you'd want to add more kilometers to that,
No,
but
but it's
Well, it's an
you can go
alternate
a
route.
different
Right,
way, right? Because
Yeah.
it's
actually,
maybe a
if you-
shortcut.
we do that one from our place to the 20 Highway where there's a breakfast place.
Mm-hmm.
So we've ridden, had
Ah.
breakfast at this little patio.
And then from that breakfast place, you can continue down to Thorold, and then you could go Thorold to Niagara Falls, and then Fort Erie. And then
Yes, and then do
Yeah.
that.
So
That
you
whole-
bypass St. Catharines.
But that would be a loop I would love to take
Nick
Nick
would,
and Anton on.
That'd be a good loop.
Anton, for reference, is one of Nick's friends that is also an avid cyclist. I don't know if we mentioned that.
He did already.
Okay,
Yeah, I
cool.
think so.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to verify. Okay, cool.
And then the next one is the Ken Reed Conservation Area in Lindsay.
Ken Reed, that sounds so familiar. Is it
Where's Lindsay?
That's up north, yes? No? Help me out. The
North,
geography
it's
is not
north.
my
Is it
strong
north?
suit. Because that name sounds familiar because there is a trail that's completely gravel that goes from to Owen Sound and it might cross through Lindsay.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a section of
Maybe.
it. It sounds really familiar. Ken Reed, right?
Oh, I was going to ask. When you went down to Norfolk, did you camp
We did, yes.
on the way there or at the arrival?
At the destination. So we
And
did
then-
one night from here down there to camp, and then we
And
came
then
up.
you
But
came
we were
back.
very fortunate that Anton's wife and my wife to be brought all of our stuff for us. So it was
Oh,
a
you
much-
didn't have to-
Yes, I have to just
Okay,
give
'cause
credit where
that's
credit
a
is
diff-
due.
back-
That's a
Yeah.
different story, right? When you-
Absolutely.
If you search online any sort of bike pack, maybe you can show images. You can edit in images. I'm giving
I'll
you
put
editing
some
work
on my
of
Facebook.
just like a fully decked out bike packing
Oh
setup.
yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
It gets ridiculous the amount of
yeah,
stuff
like
you
a
can put on.
firefighter.
And it's all about weight distribution and keeping the weight as but still carrying a tent, cooking utensil,
Well, this
like all
is
these things that
where-
you need to survive, right?
Yeah.
So
I would be happy to share some photos of the recent trip as well.
Okay.
you know,
That'd be
the
good.
Hydration
That'd be
setup
good because
and-
I'd put them on because I do.
he had a very cool
Facebook.
sandal
And
rig
on
on the front. It was like he would put like flip flops.
I'd be
on the
happy
front?
to share the story. I don't want to take away from your
No,
agenda.
no,
of things.
No, we
if
have-
you'd like a
this is great.
sidebar, I can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
go
Okay.
for
Sidebar
it.
away.
Met-
The last one, and then I'll let you share your
Please.
story, is
Yes.
the Iron Horse Trail in Waterloo.
I have not done that one yet
No,
either.
there's some trails to add to the list. It's
Mhm.
good, not a
There
bad
you
thing.
go.
All right, so I mean, I think we talked about how you guys discovered cycling,
Yeah.
kind of,
I'd be happy to give a quick
Yeah,
recap
yeah.
of that as well.
and
so,
then tell your story.
yeah, Anton,
Yeah.
the person who you mentioned as well, who's a close friend of mine. When I say that this is my first season cycling, but I feel like I've been steeped in it for a couple of years, it's because nobody like Anton that I'm aware of is A, as athletic, or B, as good as getting me into new hobbies where I spend money on lots of equipment. And so I like to think that Anton was a bit of my gateway person into cycling, and he got me into running and various other activities. And then he picked up cycling, and so naturally 2 years later I had to follow suit. So
Cool.
Very good.
And you
Yeah.
got into it out of boredom?
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Like the
and
pandemic.
there was a cool. So I love mechanical things more than I thought I did. And I mean, like working in tech, like I like solving problems on like small devices and technology and things, and bikes kind of also need that. So
And I think you were at the point in the beginning where you didn't have a lot of money to buy. a
right.
very
So I did
expensive
the thing
bike,
that
so-
you're like lots of other amateur like new cyclists do is they buy a vintage bike, which costs you like max $100, but there's tons of problems with it usually, and they're old, and they need grease and new brakes and this and new everything, new tires usually. So you learn how to work with bikes from YouTube videos, and you put it all together. So I got into it in that way of like, oh, I like building them, and like riding them's cool too because it's good exercise and all that jazz.
But necessity is the mother of learning how to do things yourself.
Right.
Because it costs less money.
Yes.
Yeah.
I enjoy
You
that.
couldn't afford a $2,000
No.
bike when you started.
No.
No, 'cause you're like,
And most people can, which makes sense. And you shouldn't go out and buy a $2,000 bike, I believe, until you go through the process of struggling through how to fix this old bike so you can appreciate
It doesn't
the new
even
one.
have to be a vintage bike. It can be a Walmart bike.
It could be a Walmart bike. No, don't buy Walmart bikes. That's your lesson in today's podcast. Yeah.
Lesson
don't.
learned. Well, no, Canadian
have we
Tire,
answered
but-
the question of why you stayed with it? Have we talked about that enough?
It makes me feel good getting out on the bike. Like it just completely relieves all stress, all worries from job, from everything. It just takes it away. You just
Good.
I think
ride it out, literally.
a lot of the things on that list are very accurate in my opinion and such a great escape. It's also a great way to spend time with people. And so I know that when Brittany, my partner, and I go out, the wonderful thing is if we were to go run 10 kilometers together, I don't have the fitness to converse while we're doing that. It's just not going to happen. But if we cycle somewhere, say to get brunch, brunch is such a bougie term, but if we go to get breakfast somewhere together, then the nice thing about that is that we have the opportunity to just talk while also comfortably cycling. It's great for us, and we've now just enjoyed a wonderful morning. So
Well, and the other
that's why
thing
we
is,
that's why we bike
like
together
cycling.
because we
And
can talk and
to be honest, part of it is as well when life gets busy, like when he's at work all day. Okay, you can go for a walk, but a walk takes
Time.
a lot.
It's a commitment.
A lot more time to get the same
yeah.
amount
A year
of fitness.
a year before COVID, you started walking every day, but I didn't. And
No.
then
And I
during
walked
COVID,
myself.
the beginning of COVID, it was fine too.
because we had nothing else.
We had nothing else. But then all of a sudden I was like back at work. I mean, I was at work during COVID the whole time, but it was like, 50 minutes of walking. That's like a long time for some of the fitness benefits. And then cycling.
You can jump on a bike.
So we could
can
do 12K in 40 minutes or 30 minutes, and it was just a lot.
And you're not like killing yourself. It's nice wide.
Good cardio.
paved
Good-
trails.
good-
You choose
cardio.
your own pace.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of it.
So
but,
I mean,
we got our good cardio in there. And
that's part of what's so remarkable to me as well, though, with biking. I'm not sure if we said this, but it's something, I might have this stat wrong, but it's like the most efficient form of human self-propelled transportation.
yeah.
So the amount of ground you
They
can
actually
cover.
say that.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy to me because when I'm out there, sometimes, I happen to have a Garmin smartwatch that I watch, and sometimes you look at the speedometer, I believe is what the term is for the metric. And you hit 40 kilometers an hour on a
Yeah.
bike, and you're like, that's just legs and a decline. So
Yeah.
that's-
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's so that kind of leads into what is your best cycling experience so far been in your
I would.
small but
So I just
mighty.
got myself a new bike. It's a Ribble CXAL, I think, if you want the technology, whatever. It is a hybrid / gravel bike. So it is.
so hybrid does not mean half electric, half pedal.
No, well, in some cases it does. Well, they call those e-bikes. E-bike is half electric, or like mostly electric.
Okay.
If you're climbing a hill, your pedals kick in, your motor kicks in. That's an e-bike.
Okay.
Mine is not that.
So hybrid means between gravel and road?
Yes,
Okay.
you can call it hybrid. You can call it gravel. The gravel is like a newer cycling term in the past 5 years, I think.
All right. So when I was your age, we had trail bikes
Yep.
and road bikes. And then mountain bikes was the new term that came in.
Yes. So that's what gravel is. Like that's what a gravel bike is. It's that new terminology. Hybrid bikes have been around for a while.
Okay.
I think they just started calling them.
Is it by thickness of tire and weight of frame? Is that
It's
what determines
essentially
it?
it's essentially like a heftier road bike frame,
Mm-hmm.
just more metal, more like solid, and
Yep.
then with thicker tires, so you can handle mud and gravel and
Right. but not
like, go
as
off
thick
trail,
as not as
but
thick
not
as a mountain bike.
as thick as a mountain bike. Sometimes as thick as a mountain bike, but not all the time. But yeah, so I went for this type of bike because I know I like to go off road and on road, and Hamilton streets are very bumpy.
Full of
So if you bought like a carbon, seat bones, and if you bought like a carbon road bike, like, and with thin tires, you're gonna pop a tire every 4 feet. You're just gonna hit a bad pothole and just not have a good time. But you're asking about what my best bike experience? Mm-hmm. Was that where I'm pulling this all together to? Is I went up the beginning of the Hamilton Brantford Rail Trail, and it was like my first time going a longer distance on this bike. And I was like, oh, I'll just do like this section of the trail. I'll turn around and come back home. But I ended up having such a good time on the bike. I just rode through the city and like did the waterfront and just kept going. And it ended up being like 40 kilometers at the end of it all. But it was so much fun just to ride it and experience it.
Theodore the Tugboat?
Yes.
Okay.
I met Theodore the Tugboat. Hashtag Theodore the Tugboat. You could probably put a hashtag and they will. Because they reshared my story of my selfie in front of the tugboat. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm famous now because I know. But that was probably my best riding experience as of yet. Because a new bike helped a lot.
And how about you, Nick?
See, everybody turned to look at me, and I'm like, this entire time in my mind, I've been like, do I say it's something with Brittany, or do I say it's the long ride I did? So I have to choose.
Brittany's kind of like listening in the background here a little bit.
What's your best one?
If I can qualify for me, I think the way that I would look at this question in terms of best experience is best regular experience that I could do with a day-to-day schedule is when Brittany and I get to get out on the weekend and we get to go to that cafe and we get to do anywhere between 50 to 60 kilometers of a nice ride on a beautiful path, get that coffee, get that croissant, and then forgive me for the pronunciation of that, and then come back and we get to get on with our day having done that really, really nice thing and spent the time together.
I would say that's like, that's...
Okay, but our max right now is 28K.
Which is still a
so
significant
good.
distance.
50K sounds like a lot, but...
That sounds so... If you keep riding that consistent rate, you'll get to 50, no problem.
And I would also say there's a difference between like 50K on this and 28K on this. Those are two very different rides.
Well, into Port Colborne, it's kind of up and down.
There's a lot of up and down too, right?
I don't know.
But that's why we also...
It might be a 30-kilometer difference.
The other thing I would
elevation.
say that is like great for us is that we have a bike rack on our car, so we can get out of the area. Like we could come here, park our car in your driveway, and like hit a trail somewhere, right?
Are you inviting yourself to do a bike ride here?
We are actually.
I'm extending the invitation, so you're more than welcome. Actually, so
but
that
I'm
brings
just
up.
saying, because our area is very hilly.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is no where you like. I think if it wasn't as hilly, I could hit.
Oh yeah, you could go well. And then the other thing I want to mention about your bikes, right? They're older Walmart style bikes.
So here's the advice for beginning
Yes.
cyclists.
Oh, is this? Are we jumping into that segment?
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, might as well.
Did we ever hear Nick's favorite?
No, I was just going to round it up by saying, so now that I've said my compulsory, what I enjoy doing with Brittany, I would also say that long ride, that's the kind of thing I'm looking to do more of as we progress, very much in line with that exploring places that cars can't go.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
For sure. Good. And did you ever tell the story about some flip-flop thing on your front of your bike?
I will tell it very quickly, thank you. And so essentially I packed for my bikepacking trip, and you lay everything out in the days beforehand.
Right.
You go through your checklist, and I have a custom Google map with all of my different things mentioned. So everybody knows where I are. We even went and we drove the route a couple weeks in advance, so I knew exactly what I was going to do. So what I mean to say by this is planned down to a T. Except for the fact that I was staying overnight somewhere in a different city, and I brought a change of clothes, but I forgot to pack shoes to change into. And so that wouldn't be an issue, but I actually ended up making great time. Go ahead.
Yeah, because you have cycling shoes. So for reference, there's clipless shoes, and they clip to your pedal if you don't know, and you can't walk properly with these types of shoes on. So
So to make a long story short, I didn't want to look ridiculous walking around town in cycling shoes at 10 p.m. at night when I'm coming back from dinner, about to go to sleep. So what I did is I actually ended up ordering a pair of the EVA Birkenstocks, which I find very comfortable. I had a pair at home. And I picked them up at a local mall, but then I realized the next morning that I had to have some way to carry them with me, and I hadn't accounted for that. And I could have figured out how to put them on the bike. I just didn't know how I would strap them to it. And so what I had done for this longer ride is there are triathlon-style handlebars, which you put in the center, and they're kind of long and narrow, and they allow you to lean in and over your handlebars. And so for me, it's a big contentious thing whether people think that should be used for gravel or not. I'm of the camp it should be, because it allowed me a different riding position.
Yeah.
And it looks a little bit like a pair of antlers on the front of it. And so because I couldn't figure out a better way, and this is what Seb is referencing was so funny, to figure out how to put them on there, I shoehorned the Birkenstocks on each of them and then lashed it with my bike lock and then rode over that all day. So I can only imagine the people passing me on a car just being like, did that guy just have a pair of Birkenstocks strapped to his
tied to the front of his
But that
bike?
is what I love about the bike packing, that adventure, is because you just have to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. You can't.
There is no, like, you're not going to leave those
shoes. Say,
what are you going to do? Tuck the shoes in a bush and like come back for them? I guess like that could work, but
they'd be gone.
They're nice Birkenstocks, of course.
That's funny. That's very good. So that's advice for
new cyclists.
New cyclists. Sorry, I lost my
Yeah.
advice to somebody who is a beginning cyclist. And I guess you can answer the other question is the essentials to a great cycling experience. Because, there's a lot of difference between really what we do is kind of like 10 or 12K. You can get by with close your ears, Sebastian.
What?
A Walmart or Canadian Tire bike.
Yeah.
You can.
You can.
But if
that's fine.
I'm talking about a real.
I'm not as judgmental in this case, by the way. I'm like, it's great, it's accessible, you're doing it.
I'm self-judge. I self-judge, but mostly because of the weight of the bike. Like, I picked up his new bike, and I'm just like, this would be so much fun to ride.
Yes.
Because I lift my bike up onto the rack, and
they're heavy.
weighs
They're
a
both
lot.
very heavy.
Because they're not.
They're just made out of the cheaper metals, right?
Yeah.
And they have heavier parts on them. That's
and
all
not
it is.
everybody has. Like,
No.
you do want it to be accessible for, and honestly, I say that like as kids, you guys started out in a bike trailer because I biked around pulling the two of you in a trailer.
Do we have footage of that so that I can?
I don't even know if we have a picture.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
That'd be awesome.
We'll recreate it now.
All I remember
I have to.
is
Yeah, one of those.
totally illegal. But you in your car seat as a baby. And your brother sitting beside you, so you were little.
Oh, that's fine.
Really little, with helmets on, and you looked like the Mario mushroom.
It's the last time anybody described Sebastian as little was in this
Yeah.
instance.
He was in
That's
the car
it.
seat.
Well, the other thing that was pretty ironic is that he likes cycling now. Is we would go, I don't know, maybe 3 blocks, and he would just be whining. I'm so tired.
I'm thirsty.
My legs hurt. And we thought.
And I would say to him, just go like another block. You can
That's exactly what I sounded like.
Have a drink, hydrate, you'll be fine. He'd drive like 3 blocks. Oh, my legs.
Or, like, we thought, okay, like, let's compete a little with his brother. Oh, no, if Zachary got ahead of him, then he just smelled, I'm not first.
He has to be first all the time.
We're just diving deep into my childhood psychology.
Okay.
It's
just
fine.
saying,
Just read the book, The Science of Stuck, and you'll get over all of our trauma.
I have it in my Audible right now. It's
but
happening.
I'm just saying, like, I would like to see, sometimes I'm sad when I go on the trail and there are like no families and kids biking together, like very few. And we did that all the time, probably every day. The kids were out after school on their bikes, and we always lived near the bike trail. So we always went. So to me, like, you want it to be accessible, but you also want people to have a good experience.
So my advice to new cyclists is, for when you're a kid, like if you're buying for kids, buy Walmart Canadian Tire bikes. Don't spend a lot of money on them. Make sure they enjoy the experience and don't whine all the time. And
we just persisted.
Just push through, and then as soon as they are done growing height wise, like that's when you can actually start investing in a bike for them. Because I was complaining and whining, not to make it okay. It wasn't
the gear differential.
No, it wasn't that. It was literally probably the height of the bike. It was probably too short for me, or
Yeah,
or too tall for
probably.
me,
Could've
or
been.
something.
Well,
in
and
there.
now we have they didn't have those little push bikes that we now see kids biking
yeah.
around.
Highly recommend those.
The pedalless bikes.
Um,
Perfect. These kids just motorize
balance bikes.
balance
Balance
bikes
bikes.
because they're like Flintstones.
and then they don't have to have training.
They
wheels
never have to.
because-
They move from that to the other,
Because your pedals are your legs.
but they also develop the core strength and the
Mhm.
muscles, and so when they just transition, they have balance, but they're also not. They don't get tired.
Like
Right.
our little Mason just flies on that thing, and he's 3, and he's been doing that.
I love
for
how
a
you
long
say
time.
our little Mason.
Well,
We're not
he's-
even grandparents.
I know he's mine. I don't care.
Sebastian, do you have anything you want to tell?
yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah. You want to tell us?
Yeah. No.
So anything else for essentials, like for a good biking?
Can I add one note
Yeah,
just
yeah,
on what you were
bring
just saying?
the
I don't mean to
saddle.
interject, but what you're saying about making sure, like, buy the cheaper bike for your children so that they can eventually have the more expensive one when they grow into it. I would also say for anybody who's new to cycling, consider borrowing a friend's bike or something that is the
Yes.
appropriate size, because that can be an investment depending on what you're looking to do, regardless if it's mountain or road or gravel or anything. It's an amount of money that you're putting into something that you're then going to have. And so if you really want to get into it, you may want to spend more upfront rather than having to spend triple the cost over time. So,
Right.
but
Right.
sorry, back over to you.
But
Oh yeah, riding a
And-
friend's bike. That
and
would
if
be a
you're
good idea.
at the level where you're saying, okay, I've ridden my friend's bike, I'm done that, I want to buy my own bike, do not spend less than $800 on a bike. That's just my advice from the top.
I
If
would
if
agree.
you don't, you're probably going to be disappointed in you're going to have to get it fixed all the time. You're going to
So, can you bring your bike to home sometime so I could ride
yes,
it?
yes, absolutely. It's actually too tall for you though. It's a too large of a frame for you.
Well, I'm just 4 inches shorter than you.
Yeah, but that actually in
does
cycling
make a
terms
big
make a
difference.
difference.
I know.
but-
I would say I want
but-
to say though about getting kids into it, that we probably could have done more of is the idea of a destination. Right? If you
Mhm.
say to your kids, okay,
Oh,
we're
cool,
going
yeah.
to bike, then we're going to get, I don't care what it
Ice
is,
cream.
ice cream or something, then they're like biking to that destination
And then burning the sugar on the
and
way
then
home.
burning the sugar off on the way home.
Before
But-
they stay up all night because
Yeah.
they're
Right.
hooked up on sugar.
right.
And I also think like one of the biggest things, and I know you guys will think this is crazy, but one of the biggest things we got were water bottle holders for our
Mhm.
bikes.
Oh, that's
Because-
a huge thing. Yeah, you need
Because
water.
we didn't have them,
Nope.
and then we started.
It wasn't a
biking
common
and-
thing, like at all. Even the bikes didn't have the little bracket things ready for
and so
built
then
in.
we started biking longer distances, and we're like dying, and we're like, wait a minute, like we need water along. And you were saying even
Electrolytes and
like
That's on this bike trip that I did, the longer one. I had 3 water bottles on me at all times, and so 2 of them were mounted inside of the frame where you would normally find those kind of more common ones now, and then on the underside of the frame right beside the pedals I would have a 3rd water bottle, and there's actually a spot on my bike that you can mount that to. Not all bikes have that,
right,
but that would be one where I'd just keep a spare thing of electrolytes, because that's the really important thing here. And this was something where when we talk about advice for new cyclists, I see there as being kind of, there's a multifaceted
Levels,
set of tiers to what we're talking about. And so if you're doing something like that, or less, if you're going out for a day, I think you're supposed to have at least 1 bottle of water per hour. And then in addition to that, consider something like electrolytes. And if that can be Gatorade is a good accessible example of that for people, because that's what's actually going to help you regain some of the salts and various nutrients that your body is going to sweat out and get rid of that water alone won't replenish. So I think what you're touching on is there's an understanding of these things that would be good to have a grasp on, because when you do go out for that longer ride, you don't want to get there and then be in a bind. I
Yeah.
believe the technical term, which is very hilarious in cycling, is called bonking. So if you
Oh,
run out of
oh,
fuel,
yeah,
you
that's right.
crash or
Really?
something like that,
Yeah,
it's
you
called,
bonk.
it's referred to
Bonking?
as bonking. Yeah.
that's funny. But yeah, so I mean, I also think that you really have to be careful about, like you talked about how much you planned ahead for your trip. Like I don't care if you're only going 10K. You need to think about, like if you don't cycle very often
yeah.
and you start heading out and you think you're going to go 10K, it can feel pretty long
Mm-hmm.
if you're not dressed. And I'm going to say this, I was not a bike short person. Like I just
Chamois. Everyone
And-
needs chamois.
And
Yeah.
now that I have bike shorts, I am so much happier
Yes.
on a bike. Like It's so much more comfortable. And I would say the most important part of the bike for us is the seat.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That was the first thing that I swapped out on my bike when I got it after doing one ride. I thought, you know what? And I had the bike short with the chamois built in, and that was what I swapped out. And that was however much money. I think mine was probably around $150. It was the best value for the price that I could find, and I could not be happier with it.
Yeah.
It is excellent. So
Because that's I remember one of my bikes, and I
we got
swapped out the seat, and I was like, what? And things I've learned from Sebastian,
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
your tires,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
sometimes they can just be low on air.
Oh yeah, if you're
And
trying to
you're-
pedal with low tires pressure, you're
that
you're
is
working triple normally.
That
And
takes
so-
us to another. Sorry, pardon me.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that takes us to another really good piece of advice potentially, which I think is what you're about to say, which is that's very challenging. So advice being check all of your components when you're walking out the door
Yep.
every single time.
Yep.
A bike pump, especially one of the ones that you just have at home,
Yeah.
is an invaluable because that's going to save you a headache or this experience of working thrice as hard.
Well, we bought this little pump that goes
Well, we
on
had to because he put the kind of tires on. What's the brand? What's the
Okay,
make?
so you have Schrader valves,
Which
and
are the kinds that you can go at any
Yeah.
common
cars
gas
have
station.
them. Everybody's
Yes.
got them, and then there's Presta.
Yeah,
And you have a
so
Presta, don't
we
you?
were like going to go to the gas station to
Yeah.
put air in our tire.
No.
Oh no, we can't.
No,
thank
you
you very
can't.
much for the new tires.
Thanks
and
for the new tires.
a whole
Sebastian.
day of
You were
waiting till I
cursed.
got the right.
And that's actually being more technical. That's the tube.
See, now
that's
I'm
inside the
whining.
tiber.
This is
Yeah, you're whining.
Yeah, that's
It's all it comes full circle.
It's
No.
part of it.
Yeah, but that brings up the tube on your ride. Another piece of advice is to bring extra tubes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
because you can change a tire out on the ride or change a tube out on the ride if you get a puncture or pop in your
Yeah.
tube, and that's saves you a 10-kilometer walk.
And
Yeah.
some way of inflating them.
Oh yeah,
Yes, you do.
bringing a
Because
small
you can't
pump.
just
You
blow
can't
it.
just blow in them.
You can't
Oh,
just
okay.
blow in
That was
the
a disappointing one time that you and Zach and I went to the short hills to bike,
Oh, and
and right away somebody had a flat tire, and we had to walk all the way up.
that
the
would be
path.
that Zachary, his back tire. He hit a root on like the first
the first time down.
Yeah.
Like
the first part where it got a little bit mountainy.
yeah,
Immediately popped a tire.
it kind of ruined the day.
So that's another example of having the right tool for. So that was mountain bike territory. We as kids, I look back to that trip, we were not ready for that
Not
at
at
all.
But at least I took you on an adventure.
But it was cool. Yeah, but it was cool.
Yeah, it was an
It's a core
adventure
memory.
of types.
Yeah, it's a good memory.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pam, if I
Right.
can jump on something that you said as well. So, Seb, you're not there about having the right tool for the job, and you're not about how much happier you are now that you have bike shorts in your life. I have a small anecdotal story I'd love to share in a second
Sure.
here.
Do it.
But I do think that talking about those tiers of people getting into things, there's,
Yeah.
when you start running, you're probably going to wear a basic pair of running shoes.
Yes.
And then if you become somebody who runs a certain amount of kilometers, you're going to probably invest in nicer running shoes because it makes your life better. I feel the same way about padded shorts. I'm like, if you're somebody who is just getting cycling, just wants to try it out, is boring their friend's bike, you can probably get away with doing a certain distance of ride without padded shorts.
Right.
But to your point, they are lifesavers, and I feel like I have very much come around in this, and my story relates to when I used to work at a coffee shop. And on Sunday mornings, of course, you would have the group of middle-aged cyclists who come in, and you would have all of the men in their super tight bike shorts and bibs just walk in with their goofy shoes that they could walk sideways in, and you'd be like, this is ridiculous. Do you need
What
to
are
be out
these
in public
guys
like
doing?
this?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this line, and hopefully there's no copyright infringement for this, but
No.
No, it's all good.
in one of the Batman movies with Christopher Nolan, Alfred the Butler says something to the effect of, you either die or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And I feel like with bike shorts, I've now come full circle to becoming the villain because I can't endorse them enough. Because for longer rides,
Yeah.
they really will
It's
help.
a huge difference in.
I love
Like, just
the
being
reference to
comforted.
Batman and the whole loop.
That was good. That
I'm
was,
just trying to give you hashtags here.
That's
So.
good.
Absolutely.
Hashtag Batman. Hashtag.
That was
other.
very. There's a
it's
script
good.
somewhere there.
No.
He's got it. He's got to have a
it's
script.
good, but I think we're getting towards the end of. I mean, we could talk all night, I guess, about biking, but the whole thing is, it is a really good form of exercise. It's a good form of connecting. You can invest money in it, but there's a lot worse things you could be investing your money in. So, make a goal. I want this $2,000 bike, and save and that's the thing where you think, so you've got a teenager that stopped growing and they want a bike, for every $100 you put away, I'll give you 50. And the next thing you know, they've
got a bike.
They've got themselves a bike.
Yeah, and if we don't adopt every new iPhone that comes out the moment it comes out, we can save that money for a bike.
And can I add one last thing just to tie up with the bow? The recommendations is take that extra money that you've saved from not buying the latest iPhone and get yourself the safety gear, the appropriate safety gear. So find a helmet that fits you well. Yes. If style is important to you, go for a stylish one. That doesn't necessarily matter.
Light and rear light.
And lights.
Rear lights.
Exactly. So I think that's a very important.
I think that's actually a great end note. Like, if you're planning to bike and that's your thing, you get in your car, you do up your seatbelt, you make sure that the oil's changed, you do the things that you need to do. Well, you have to do the same things when you're biking, and stay in the bike lane when you can, and stay on trails when you can. I think just that wild biking down the streets. There's so many places, I think, in Ontario and probably across the country now where you can bike safely without being on major roads and things like that.
Yeah.
Stay
There's
safe.
Lots of places. Stay alert. Stay safe.
That's good. All right. Well, thanks to Nick and Sebastian and Brittany for this really very cool podcast setup. This was quite fun. And we will post this, and we'll post a bunch of hashtags.
Absolutely. And coming up at the end of the month or the beginning of the month
is August 15th, our next podcast.
Oh, middle of the month. Okay.
The 10 smartest people we know. What has made them so intelligent, and what are their best qualities?
So we should come back for that.
Yeah, I guess
we'll be back.
I guess you'll be back.
And Brittany will be on as well.
Well, if anybody has, and these do not have to be like people, they can be like people in the world.
You just said intelligent people, and I immediately thought of myself.
I can see that, but well, if you think of anybody who you think is really smart that we should include, you can just let us know.
Cool.
Good. Well, thanks for joining us for No Room for Phonies with Nick and Sebastian and Brittany in the background and Charles and I here in Brantford, Ontario, in this beautiful setting on cycling.
Good night.
Perfect. That's a cut.